So I will tear every time I see that. I think this is I'm shaking a little bit because I am an Armenian American, and we were, all of us in the diaspora, and I know my friends, were sitting on Facebook till wee hours of the morning, watching all of that happen, just waiting to see what would be next. I am certain you have questions already from what you have just seen. I don't think I can give a better introduction to Anna than that. But I think one thing how I'd like to start is to point out, first of all, that as a journalist, Anna has a certain perspective, perspective, as someone who captures human experience and perhaps brings moral dilemmas to the forefront. So it's very interesting that the Prime Minister's spouse and the woman there at the helm of the revolution was not just a woman, she was a woman journalist, and this gives interesting perspectives. But to notice, and you may not have seen in that crowd, but a large percentage, not more than 50%, of those active in the revolution were women and young girls. And we've actually discussed this before, how women were not only present, they were intricately involved. The word I love to use is agency, as opposed to just being present. Then there's representation, and then there's agency, actually formulating and catalyzing change. So I wondered if you could start by talking a little bit about what made women so important to this revolution, and young girls too.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Rachel, I want to welcome all you in our beautiful country. I hope you already have enjoyed Armenian hospitality, Armenian great food, tasty food, and got friends here. And I hope you will remember your time spent in Armenia, and will be back definitely and very soon. And the question about about women were involved in the process of revolution. I think that every single person in our society during past 20 years was already enough for them. The brutality, the injustice, the corruption, not having freedom of speech in our country, freedom or having our right of vote, and all other very important values that were not existing in our lives for 20 years or more. And it was the urge or the border that people could anymore be patient with that situation in our country. So, as well as women, as well as men, they started they believed that this time the revolution will have success. So, but if women were not engaged in this big number, because half of the square they were full of women, I don't believe that we could have success, because women with their children, small children, they were guarantees of peace. We have in our history very, very black page of 2000 and March 1, and a lot of people were afraid of the repeatment of March 1 events, bloody events, but the presence of women and children in the squares of every city of our country, in regions, in villages, it was the guarantee of peace and guarantee that the revolution could come true. after I want to speak about change of the role of women after the revolution, because it was the beginning, but we have to do a lot. We have to believe in ourselves, and still in Armenia, women are not very active in politics, in social life, because it's supposed to be the place of men in our country. But after the revolution, and after that, the new prime minister of Armenia is highlighting very much the role of women in the revolution process, as well as in the revolution process, and in the continuation of our life. Making a new society, making revolution in our minds, and making women to be more active in the society and in politics, in all spheres of the life, because everyone understands that we will bring only very big use of our country, of our society. Women will be more engaged in politics and social issues and other spheres of lives. So it's an ongoing process. I believe that women in Armenia every day will become more and more active, and will believe in themselves and in their strength, and change what they want to change in our society, to make it more good place for themselves, for their families, for their children's parents, and so all of us. Thanks.
I wanted to, thank you. I wanted to, on that note, just make sure everyone was aware of what Anna has done as the spouse, in her role as the spouse of Nikol Pashinyan. She has formulated 3 initiatives in her position. One of them, the first, probably the biggest, is My Step Foundation, which maybe you have heard of, which focuses on humanitarian, cultural, maybe socioeconomical challenges that perhaps the government cannot get to, with the idea that we'll try to leave no one behind. And that's their perspective, and the foundation's been about a little over a year now, right? My Step Foundation, yeah,
More than a year.
Since last July. Another area is City of Smiles Foundation. This focuses on children with cancer and fighting cancer, and oncological challenges here in Armenia. And the third is a Women in Peace campaign, focused on the resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, and not from a political perspective, but from the perspective of women. For anyone who knows anything about that region, or as you could probably imagine, there are mothers and there are wives who watch their husbands and their children go to war, or who are dealing with the conflict on a regular basis, and women have an incredible role they can play in peace. And that initiative. So those are 3 things I wanted to make sure everyone knew about. I think that one of the questions then that I would ask is, now you are in a role where you have the ability to make change, and what are some of the challenges you have that you didn't have on stage, but that you may have now in your role? And there's positive too, but what are the tensions in your role now that you?
Yes, unfortunately, I have a lot of challenges in my new role, because, again, in Armenia, people don't used to see like a wife of prime minister or president be so active as I am now, and it's hard, because I'm under the pressure. I know exactly that people love it, people love me, but political, and they love what I do, and I can see it, because I'm working in the streets of our country, I'm being in the villages, I'm talking with people, and I can't live without that part of my life. But political opposition of my husband, they are using this situation very much to harm him, because still in Armenia they think that your wife is so active and it is not so good for you. Maybe you are not a very good husband. Why your wife is so active? She has to stay at home and in the kitchen and take care about children only. What is this situation? Something is wrong in your family, maybe. they are trying to use this kind of I don't know, stereotypes maybe, to harm and to have some benefits for themselves. And it's very hard to continue and not to stay under this pressure and go back and stop your position, your activities, what you want to do. But I am trying because I believe in my role. I believe in women's role in this world, entire world, and I don't want to give up because of this kind of it's not healthy. It's not healthy approach to the situations, because if my approach is like this, if my husband is prime minister, he's in very hard situation, because to lead the country, like I believe that every country has its own problems, but lead a country like Armenia with its a lot of historical and not historical problems, it's very hard. And my approach is that I cannot stay at home and live my life very easily when my husband is under such kind of pressure and he has to deal such kind of big problems to find solutions. And I think that as his half part of his half part, I have to do myself what I can do to help him to be useful for our society, for my country. And I can't imagine myself to stay at home, to go to, I don't know, to how spend the time, if not to be useful for your husband and your country. And it's for children, it's for all our children. So it's hard. Again, I can say that it's not easy, but in our life we have passed a lot of hard times, and I believe this is one of them only.
Relatively speaking, I would think you refer to balance, and I think those are very real challenges that I think any woman in your position would have, and maybe even when we think about education and we think about how to empower young women with that ability to balance. I think it's an important perspective. I'd like to ask one more question and then open it up for others to ask questions. What is the learning you would pass on to women and girls today in Armenia? What would you like?
But for women to act and to not live their lives only in the role that, I don't know, traditionally is for women. It's an everyday struggle. For me, it was a struggle to start to work when I was 19 years old, and we had already 2 children with my husband, and he was the chief editor of a newspaper that we founded together, his newspaper. And I was asking him already, because I was graduated from journalism department of Yerevan State University, and I had no other chance to work because I got married and children, etc. And I started I opened the discussion about my starting to work. And he was not greeting that idea, and he was postponing every time and finding some reasons that not now, maybe after, etc. And it was very hard. It was a struggle for me just to start to work as a journalist in a newspaper where my husband was the chief editor. He was my boss. And I can understand how hard it is for a woman to go to urge her husband to be okay with the idea that she will go to work and she will have a boss, another man. It's a problem. And I finally could have success and he was okay. He just asked me, he said me, just let's try. If you can write anything, maybe you will start to work in our newspaper. And I said, okay, I agreed. I wrote my first article for him. It was about exams when children are graduating from school and giving exams to enter to university. The article was about that exams process, and he was surprised, and he was reading my articles with his eyes open, very open eyes, because that was written in a very perfect way, I can say. I can say because it was his reaction to my article, and
So
after that,
what does he say now? Yes.
he's no, I don't know. And then I started to work, and after that, every next step, every next activity, to be very honest, he was He started to support me, and he gave me an opportunity to go to United States for 1 month for trainings as a journalist. I couldn't do that. I couldn't even imagine that I can leave my children and go, but he urged me to do that, and he said that grandma and grandpa, they will take care about the children, and it was his initiative for me to go. But the first steps were on my shoulders. It was for my initiatives to stay on my position and say that I have to work and I have to be a journalist. I can do that, and please don't. Yes. That's and it is everyday struggle for women because it's hard to, again, it was hard to with small children. Ashot and Mariam, they were 2 and 3 years old, and I had to take care about everyone in this room know about that. It was very hard, but a lot of women at this beginning, they get tired. They get disappointed and they just give up, and this is what I want to say them: never do that, because you will stay at home and do nothing, and your husband will work and enjoy the life, because to work and to do something useful in your society, it's a very important source of happiness. You will have family, you will have a good husband who will love you, you will have a good life, but if you don't work or you do something very useful for society, for in your country, you will not be fully happy. No?
Thank you. Yes.
I hope my English is not very awful.
English is wonderful.
Because it is the first time I'm talking
very proud
in this situation in English. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Just 2 things I want to draw out of what you said toward the end, especially, is that to have a support system around you in a country like Armenia, and I think many people who are from countries in which the support, whether it be a spouse or a parent or both parents, is really fundamental to your own empowerment, particularly as a woman. And I think the other important piece that I know is that many of the women very involved in the revolution, including Anna, experienced training outside this country. They had gone at least for a month, if not closer to 6 months to a year, to Europe or to the United States. And so they came back with a much broader and global sense of empowerment. So I think those 2 things are very important, and I think some of the challenges that we see in Armenia do exist from an insular perspective that maybe could be enriched more. I know that as AWA, as an organization, is intent on seeing how we can build more mentoring between Armenians around the world so that we can raise all of us together. So I just wanted to draw those 2 out. I think they're very important points. Thank you. I'd like to open it up. How would you like to? You're going to pass. She's going to pass. Larsa's going to pass. To anyone with a question or a comment?
Hi, Maggie, my sister.
Hi.
First of all, it's such an honor to have both of you in the room. Truly, it's an honor. I was, and my mom, were part of the revolution since day 3. I did not go to work for like 2 weeks. It was okay with my employer because we were out protesting. My question is about how do we get involved more? How do we help? Because I think I'm very lucky and privileged enough to have had a really great life and to not have encountered, really great discrimination. And how can I, as a young woman, kind of help the rest of the women in my society? And how do I get involved in certain groups, or should we start one on our own? So just kind of like, how do we get involved and how can I be more helpful?
Question is,
You can
either. Okay. I think that it depends. First of all, we all, you, me, and others in our country, we all have to start by ourselves in our daily life, in our approach, and if you are already, as I understand, you are working, you have participated in revolution, it's already help to you, to your friends, girlfriends, your family, your mom, mother, and sisters, and etc. But you can be, I think, I don't think that it's very, we need a lot of platforms to be together, to act together, because it will take a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of money. But in our places, all of us can, and with our, to be an example for in our surrounding, it's already help, and it can be very useful, if I understand. But Rachel, she has another opportunities for that.
I think I would say I'd love you to join AWA as we grow,
Yeah.
first of all.
I was guessing that.
Because one of our goals will be to try to capture and encapsulate all of the energies and wonderful, the encouragement and investment that all of the women and young women especially would like to make around the world, and connect them, and then build those connections and allow them to, and nurture them so they actually generate change, whether that be social change or other personal and professional, their own professional lives. So I wanted to say, though, to your point about should we start our own, I think Larissa, myself, even Anna, those who are very active, maybe even you, in the diaspora in Armenia, we have an enormous number of efforts and initiatives and NGOs and things happening right now. And we are not a large country, and we're not a large population. And so I would like to see us collaborate more. I'd like to see us combine those energies, optimize our resources, optimize our talents, and see us not build competition and try to steal it. And also in the process, I mean, there's an awareness factor, because a lot of people are not even aware of how much is happening in this country. So for us as AWA, it's our hope that we can help make people, the world, more aware of the efforts, and in the process collaborate more. It's just something to think about, is not dividing resources, but combining them.
Hi, I just visited yesterday one school in Sevgar. The headmaster was a woman, the teachers were women, they were grandmothers cooking for the small ones on a voluntary basis. There was a woman who showed us the community. There was a woman, old woman, who prepared bread for us. I also say how amazed, inspired by the strength of the woman from Armenia. And I just encourage both of you to take that strength from the rural area. So I can imagine what you really can do in the future with this kind of woman. You know, they were absolutely impressive. So
thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for sharing. I'm Margarita, I'm from Colombia. In our very traditional societies, it's not very common for women to speak out and be loud. And both women and men feel really uncomfortable when women are loud and speak up. So based on like your experience, what can you share with all of us that we mentor girls and young women on a permanent basis to help them speak out and be allowed?
Thank you. I don't even know what. As I said, it's hard. It's not easy, and I don't know what to say to women in Argentina or Armenia to start to speak loud. You say, I initiated I can bring my example because only on my examples I can answer to your questions. I initiated Women for Peace campaign when my husband became a prime minister, and it's a risk. It's always a risk to speak out and be heard, because you know that you never know what will be the reaction, and you have to go to risk and not to be afraid of the reactions, even if they can be not very nice for you, because I faced such kind of situation when I started my campaign. Like, it is something very new in our, not only in our country, but in our region, and I can say in the world, because a lot of countries have armed conflicts in their regions, with their neighbors and other countries, but I can't remember a case when a wife of the leader of that country spoke about peace and stop the war and such kind of messages. This is very new, and I knew that it will not be easy for the society or for political partners or even the neighbors in our country or international society. It's not easy for them to understand what I'm saying, why I'm saying, because just live your lives and don't be out and don't be loud. Just be calm and stay. Everything is going on like it is going on. And it's a risk to do. First of all, you have every woman and girl, and they have to take that risk, not be afraid of saying something or doing something. If they believe that what they want to do. I believe in my initiative. I believe that I don't want war. I don't want soldiers from both sides, in our sides and the other sides in our hostiles. I don't want even to use that word. But I don't want the soldiers, 18 to 20 years old boys, to die during that war. I believe in that, and I'm sure that I'm doing something very important, and that's why I don't care about the reactions. Even I don't care about that. So the first step is risk, and not to be afraid of the reactions of society or neighbors or relatives or your family members, but you have to make sure that what you do is something very right, because we can do everything. I don't know. It's not a fashion. It's very important, the idea, the meaning, what you want to speak about or to do about.
One more question. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to impart wisdom on us. My question as a mother and a social innovator is, how do you keep a healthy balance, right? You're an activist, you're a mom, a wife, you have your own identity outside of all those roles. How do you keep a healthy balance?
Thank you for that question. It's very important as well. But you know, because after that I was a journalist, it helped my specialist. It helps me very much because after that I became the chief editor of our newspaper, and to be a chief editor of daily newspaper, a political newspaper, it takes a lot of time. And my children were used to that situation, that mother is working hard and all the time, and they used to that situation. And I was in that time, I was balancing during Saturday and Sunday, because all Saturday and Sunday I spent with my children, and I am talking with them very, very much, because I believe that it doesn't matter how many times you spend with children when you both, or all of you are in the house. You can be in the home, but not to talk even with children, not spend time with him. And for me, it's something not very useful. It means how many times you spend with children, how many times you speak with them, you tell them what you think that is important them to know about. So I was balancing during Saturdays and Sundays, but in this new situation, I unfortunately now I'm not very active in the newspaper, and I'm not actively editing the newspaper, because this position and that are not. It's not important to.
They don't combine.
Yes, they don't combine together. And now I can be in a visit to other country for 3 days. When it means that my children don't see me. My youngest one is 4 years old. Especially she is missing very much. But when I'm coming back, I'm staying at home for 3 days or more even, to balance that situation. And I think that I'm doing that. They are satisfied. Thank you.